Hello everyone, welcome to Off the Cuff, where the headlines come to life. In the studio today is Mr. Mike Rott, who's the producer-director of the award-winning documentary, The Luft Gangster, Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero. And this is the story of the Tuskegee Airmen of World War II. Welcome, Mike, to WDHT TV.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a thrill to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. This is such an amazing story, and just doing some research. I mean, I've always heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, and you hear that through conversations and what have you, but you never really, well, I never really focused in and really understood the history. But with this film that you have made, this amazing film, it really gives an in-depth bird's eye view of what these men have actually gone through. You've actually been to film festivals as well.
We have, and it was kind of interesting how the project came about, because my father met Colonel Jefferson when he was giving a speaking engagement, and after he said, let's bring him into the studio and just interview him and donate the footage, because he's an amazing man and a civil rights and a war hero, and we thought we were just going to interview him and donate the footage. But what happened was, we brought him into the studio and started interviewing him. It was just like, Colonel, your life is a movie and everyone needs to know your story. So that's how it started. And we hit so many points where because we self-funded, we couldn't get money to do it. So that was a big challenge there. And we hit so many points where we weren't sure if it was even going to be tangible to complete the project. And then we had entered into some film festivals. December of 2014 as a work-in-progress submission, which is very common for the film industry. Sure. Because they take so long to make. You'll enter them when they're halfway done, a third of the way done, whatever. And we entered into the Los Angeles International Underground Film Festival, and we're kind of at a low point. We're realizing how much time this is going to take, how expensive it's going to be,
how enormous project this is.
Yeah, because we want, it wasn't a short film. This was feature worthy. So, and then I get an email. You have been selected, named an official selection of the LAIUFF, the Los Angeles International Underground Film Festival.
That must have been very encouraging,
it was,
to say the least.
So I called my mom and my dad, who is kind of a family operation. My dad's a co-producer and the music director on the movie, and Mom was the interviewer, and she did a lot of the art design. So
it was a family-oriented kind of
It sure
project.
Was. I call them right away and I say, you won't believe it, we got into an LA film festival, it's so exciting. Let me read you the email. Well, what I didn't read, I got so excited, I didn't read the second paragraph of the email. So as I'm reading the rest of the email to her, it says, you have also been named a winner in at least one category. Click on the link to see where your name is. And sure enough, it says the Luft Gangster, Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero, Best Documentary Feature, winner.
Oh my goodness, that was unexpected as well. I mean, just
this is our first movie,
yeah.
That was a dream come true. So it was like, well, we can't stop now.
No, absolutely not. And the content and the subject matter are so intense and so necessary, especially in our current environment right now. And you mentioned Colonel Alexander Jefferson, who's actually one of the main characters. Well, a real life character in the movie, and he talks about his experiences. But I want to cut over to your trailer and a clip of the movie that gives us a little bit of an idea of the documentary, The Luft Gangster, Memoirs of a Second-Class Citizen. And here's the trailer.
Everybody saw the movie The Red Tails, right? How many saw The Red Tails? Raise your hands. Huh? Good. Nothing in that movie is true. We were the only black family in the complete 2 blocks. This is where I started to learn about ethnic hatred. Somebody once asked me, why did you join the Army Air Corps? Why did you fight? This country's segregated. I said, well, wait a minute. Best doggone country in the world. When I got to Stalag Luft 3, controlled by the Luftwaffe, the interrogator had a big book. There's my class picture. And the Germans knew everything about every man. Luft means air. And the Germans called American fighter pilots Luftgangsters, air gangsters. They would depict American fighters as gangsters from a German point of view. To us, we were simply doing our job.
Bogies coming in, 11 o'clock high. Bubble blue 3, bubble blue 3, this is bubble blue 4. Bogies coming in. Bogies.
That's amazing. I look at that and I want more, and I want to hear more, and I want to understand the lives of these individuals that had to endure being at war, protecting their country, and yet facing their own war in trying to do the right thing. How did you decide? Well, you had mentioned that you had interviewed Colonel Jefferson and obviously saw that this was movie worthy. So what were the steps that you had to take, and how did you decide, okay, this is a story worth telling, and we're going full force, and you put your own funds behind this movie, and of course, you know, it's packaged, it's a DVD, and it's something that's a finished product.
Yes.
So how was your journey in creating this?
Well, it was when Colonel Jefferson came into the studio and started explaining his story all the way from being a young kid through just the climate of the times. To give you an example, in 1925, the Army War College issued an official memorandum that was supposedly the detailed results of the African American in World War I and their combat applicability in World War II. And it was basically just a very high level, thought out by very intelligent bigots, a 30-page document that said the Negro lacks the mental capacity to operate machinery,
Right.
the Negro this, the Negro that, can't do this, can't do that. I mean, it was just 30 pages of that. It was just crazy to me. And what the Tuskegee Airmen did was they took that time, they were given an opportunity, and not only did they excel operating not just machinery, but flying fighter planes, P-51 Mustangs, escorting the bombers in the European theater of war. But they were so good that the white bomber crews started requesting the Red Tails.
Right, right.
The Red Tails, by the way, the name, it didn't come out in any way because they were black or anything like that. It was simply that their unit, they painted the tails red. There was also a Yellow Tails group, a checkered yellow and black tails, so they ended up being the Red Tails. But the bombers, they'd say if we saw the Red Tails, we knew we were making it home that night, because they were fearless and they were incredibly good.
So, just for individuals, we did run the trailer, but what exactly is the Tuskegee Airmen? How are they actually created? And you had mentioned a little bit about that, but it was majority of Black Americans that made up this this group. So, what is so amazing about them? In a few words here.
Perseverance. I'll give you a great example. So the squadron commander of the 1st Tuskegee Airmen Unit, his name was Benjamin Oliver Davis Jr. He was the first African American to go through West Point to become an officer. Now, in 4 years at West Point, they were basically shunning him to get him to fail. No one would speak to him unless it was official military business. So he would go over to a table for lunch and say, "Permission to sit down and eat, sir." Denied. Go to the next table. Denied. Finally, he'd find himself off in a corner eating by himself. But he persevered. He made it through 4 years of West Point and graduated. He became the first squadron commander of the 99th Pursuit Squadron. So, I mean, if you can just put that into context, in that era, with that mentality, 4 years, no one's going to speak to you every day of your life unless it is
Talk about
official military
and seclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he must have felt like he was on an island, but you know, he tucked his chin, he kept going, graduated, became the commander of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which was the first squadron activated in March 22nd, 41. And they became the best of the best. Colonel Jefferson told me that B.O. Davis used to say, "We dare not fail," because they knew what was riding on it. If they failed, their whole civil rights movement could have been delayed by decades. Because 5 years after that, it led to the desegregation of the military, and a couple years after that, the desegregation of schools. So their success started the domino effect that led to, I mean, now today we have an African American president. Who knows, if they failed miserably, who knows?
Right.
Could be decades delayed. They were unbelievable.
You know, there was a few sentences that I think really made me understand what it was, and it says, "Who are the Tuskegee Airmen of World War II? They were dedicated, determined young men who enlisted to become America's first black military airmen at a time when there were many people who thought that black men lacked intelligence, skill, courage, and patriotism. They came from all over the United States. Each one possessed a strong personal desire to serve the United States of America at the best of their ability." Now, these are men that should be celebrated, honored, and definitely decorated as war heroes. But during the course of their service, and especially during the end, as you spoke, they were not allowed to go into certain quarters. They weren't allowed to go into certain clubs that the regular airmen, or regular, but you know, the white airmen were able to go into. And many of those individuals who decided to go against the grain and take on their civil right, basically, to be able to be served at a club, they ended up being persecuted. And I think there was 103 of them. And do you know the story I'm talking about?
Well,
where they went into the club against all odds, and they were actually court-martialed for doing so.
Yeah.
And then later on they were exonerated, but still that, you know, they had to deal with that kind of thing.
There were places that German prisoners of war could go that black American military officers could not, like in the chow halls and stuff. The German Nazi POWs were allowed, but the black American officers could not go. I mean, when you think about the context of that, it just shows how on the totem pole of human rights where they stood in the country at that time.
Absolutely, you know,
it's just unbelievable. And the Freeman Field, that was a whole unbelievable situation there. In fact, there was another time they were told that they rioted at Selfridge Air Force Base when they were traveling, and it's in the movie, and they were met by the National Guard. Every 10 feet there was a soldier with a rifle, because they were expecting these crazy, riotous people to come off the train, causing all kinds of trouble. What happened was they jumped off the train in their dress uniforms, like perfect military etiquette, total gentlemen, and in 10 minutes the National Guard disappeared. It was just like, what are you talking about? Absolutely. But that was the sorts of, every obstacle that could have possibly been put in front of them, there were people that were trying to make that happen. Now, there were also people that were really on their side. For example, there were white officers that volunteered to be trainers at Tuskegee, because and then many of them sacrificed their careers because they were interested in making sure that these guys pass the tests, they get their opportunity to fight. And a lot of times they were asked, well, why would you want to fight for this country? This isn't your country. They're not even nice to you here. They don't even love you. He said, yes, it is. It is my country. And she may not treat me right all the time, but I'm going to let her know how to treat me. And this is my country, and I want to fight.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And I brought that up because during one of our Images and Perceptions Diversity Conference, we had Martha Reeves actually speak to the audience, and she had spoke about going on tour, and she was the headliner, and a lot of the band members who were white were actually allowed to go and sleep in the hotel. But her and the other African American individuals that were on tour ended up having to sleep on the bus. And if I tell you there was not a dry eye in the house with that story, believe me, and that really resonated with me so intensely. And so when I read about this particular situation, you know, with these men, and these men were there fighting for their country and trying to, you know, preserve our freedoms, and yet this is the way they were treated. And not only there, but even on their way home, you know, they actually faced stereotypical aspects and prejudice and what have you. There's another clip. So can you just set up this clip for us a little bit? This is when Colonel Jackson was a young boy, and he's got local roots here in Detroit. So set up this clip for us.
Yeah, so Colonel Jefferson, when he was a very young boy.
Jefferson, yes.
Yeah. He would, Detroit and pretty much most of America at that time in the 1920s. He's 94 now, 94 years young. But he remembers when he was a kid going downtown in Detroit, and there was some, we'll say, limitations on what they were, as an African Americans, able to do.
Right, and here's the clip.
Five or 6 or 7 years old, I remember this. We go downtown, we catch the Michigan Avenue streetcar. We go downtown to Hudson's, and you notice that there are no black salespersons in Hudson's. Only black women, and the only job they had was elevator operators. I want to go to lavatory. No lavatories downtown. What happened? Mother says, you have to hold it. So I get on the streetcar, go back out Michigan Avenue to 28th Street, so I go behind a tree and relieve myself. No restaurants downtown to eat in. Taj Mahal boat, forget it. Only certain parts of Detroit where blacks could live.
You know, Mike, in this day and age, it is so difficult to see something like that, and to know that a very short time ago, this was our country's fascia, our country's attitude, and so we have come a long way, and I'm sure that the men of the Tuskegee Airmen have made a huge difference. Colonel Jefferson has been a poster child, basically, and now with this movie, of course, very well known. What other things has he done? How has he been decorated, along with the other individuals that are still living from the airmen? What have we done to highlight them as heroes? And I notice your title of a second-class hero, but this day and age, definitely hero at its best.
Oh yeah. That was what the title Luft means air. So the Luft gangster is the air gangster, because the Germans, as part of their propaganda, called our pilots air gangsters.
And he was a POW, wasn't he, in Germany?
Yeah, and Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero is only because at that time they were treated as second-class citizens, but wow, were they heroes. Absolutely.
No, very appropriately named.
So yeah, he was one of the 32 men that were held as prisoners of war by the Germans in World War II of the Tuskegee Airmen. And when I filmed at his apartment, it was just unbelievable. It's like a museum. He has plaques and medals and pictures with Colin Powell and this person and Obama and George W. Bush. And in 2007, the Tuskegee Airmen collectively were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal at this unbelievable ceremony, and we have clips of it in the documentary, where Colonel Jefferson actually gave a little talk and showed his appreciation. But after all these years, there's no question that now there is the recognition of what they did. There's 53 Tuskegee Airmen chapters nationwide. It started in Colonel Jefferson's basement in 1972, the first chapter. And probably the most exciting thing was when we made the movie, we wanted to make sure it was accurate, and all the Tuskegee Airmen guys loved it. They loved it so much that they actually inducted my father and I as honorary members into the local Tuskegee Airmen chapter.
Oh my, what an honor.
Yeah.
What an honor. Your dad must have been so pleased.
Oh, we were thrilled. We were on absolutely cloud nine because we just wanted to do something accurate and factual and entertaining and loving and inspirational that pulled no punches and told it exactly like it was. And that's what we've been hearing from all the airmen.
Absolutely, and it sounds like this was truly a labor of love.
Oh, without question.
You put your own funds, and you found something in this remarkable individual that definitely needed a story to be told.
He's incredible.
Absolutely. We have another clip that I'd like to go to as well, and I understand that Gary Sinise actually introduced this movie up in the air. With American Airlines, so people were able to enjoy it there. But this is another clip in regards to the Congressional Medal that was actually presented to the Tuskegee Airmen by Carl Levin. So it's a couple minutes.
Everybody saw the movie The Red Tails, right? How many saw The Red Tails? Raise your hands. Good. Nothing in that movie is true. It's strictly Hollywood. I hate it. Seriously. I hate it because the hero, the guy who was a hero, is a drunken bum. Think what it does to the legacy of Tuskegee Airmen.
The statistics of their heroism are overwhelming. More than 15,000 combat sorties, 260 enemy aircraft destroyed, 150 distinguished flying crosses and legions of merit, and more than 700 air medals and clusters. They were so proficient, you were so proficient, that white bomber pilots did not just come to accept escorts by the Tuskegee Airmen, they requested the Tuskegee Airmen.
I'm Sherry A. Wells. My father is Harry F. Wells. My father enlisted in the Air Force. He got to be captain, and one of his crew one time said, "Did you see those pilots? And the fighter planes that were coming, they're Negroes." And my father said, "I don't care if they're purple with pink polka dots. The Germans are firing live ammo at us." He had told my mom that when they saw the Red Tails, they knew they were getting home that night.
Wonderful, very impressive. You've got Carl Levin and a lot of other politicians. Very well-placed recognition of the Tuskegee Airmen. And I'm glad that we're bringing awareness to this because these are heroes that need to be highlighted. And you have done such a wonderful job in this documentary, which is award-winning, right? we're not gonna discount that in any which way form. So this is the Luftgangster Memoirs of a Second-Class Hero. Now, we want to get a copy of this. How do we do that?
So we have Blu-ray and DVD available through our website, luftgangstermovie.com.
Okay.
It is also available digitally on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. And we were recently just picked up by Comcast. So if you want to watch it on demand at home, you can go through your Comcast interface and order it that way.
So it is out there for us to watch and enjoy.
Yeah, we let it fly.
All right.
No pun intended.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on an amazing documentary and an amazing initiative that you actually saw through fruition. And there was a vision there, and it's a completed one. So congratulations. I can't wait to just sit and watch the whole thing. I've done some research on it, and I am just mesmerized, and I think people need to know about this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Off the Cuff. This is definitely worth watching to educate ourselves, to think about the past, and to make a better future. Thanks for joining us on Off the Cuff. We'll see you next time.